Oh, it looks like we are live. Kenny, start the podcast off. You want to do the introduction? You want me to hop on it?
I'll knock it out. I'll knock it out. Take it off from yesterday.
Aye,
Um,
you good to
all
go
right.
whenever.
Sweet. We're live. Let's go, dude. All right, everybody. Welcome to Ep.2 of the Peach State Tailgate Sports Podcast. We're back at you again the day after the inaugural episode of the show. We started off yesterday by kind of, giving a quick breakdown of what we expected to see from the MLB trade deadline. And here we are. Deadline has come and passed us. We had some crazy moves today. We're going to do a little bit of breakdowns today between Jake and I, and you talk about what we saw, what we wanted to see and maybe didn't, and kind of go from there. So, Jake, what you got?
Man, today the deadline was insane. We saw a lot of moves that seemed like they happened past 6 o'clock, and it started to make me aggravated because when I was doing my podcast notes, I didn't know when it was safe to start. I was trying to do them in the order I wanted to, and I was like, I already know Alex Anthopoulos at some point at 6:35, we're going to get a trade. It wasn't quite 6:35, but we did go on a little bit past 6, and it was an exciting one. I'm sure we'll get to it at some point in the episode. I wanted to go ahead and start off by saying that our podcast that we do, which is just the feed from the live, is now on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Whenever this finishes up, the next morning you should be able to find the podcast. So if you miss some of it and can't catch it, you can check some of the podcast next morning. Listen to it on the ride to work.
Absolutely, and for the guys out there that are listening to us in the car or listening to us from Spotify or your Apple Podcast, wherever you get your podcast at, always remember that we do have a YouTube channel. We're gonna post some content on there, like our live streams, and you actually get some video footage where you can see some things. Like we'll have a little breakdown, some graphics up on the screen to kind of talk about the various things that we discuss. I know today we got some college football breakdowns, some SEC breakdowns, so you get to see that on there, and get you a little screenshot action, get on there, see what you think, come up with your own list, and let's compare. And let us know anything you have in the comments. If you have any debates you want to get after, or any hot takes you notice that you think we got a little crazy on, let us know. We'd love to see it.
Oh yeah, last shout out I have. We also have a Twitter. Find us on Twitter at Peach State Pod. That's where we post all of our stuff, letting you know when we go live, letting you know anything that what we're doing. Sometimes we post a little funny stuff, just getting it started. Kenny, you want to get this thing started?
And let's get going, man. I'm pumped.
All right, I'll go ahead and lead us off. First news I want to talk about. We're going to talk about the first trade the Braves made, and this trade actually happened before we did the podcast yesterday. But I wanted to save all the Braves moves for today's episode, and it wasn't really like a super crazy deal. The Braves bring in former Brave Ari Adrianza from the Washington Nationals in exchange for a minor league outfielder Trey Harris. Ari Adrianza this year, he only has he has a 179 batting average. He has a 255 on base percentage, 202 slugging, and 458 OPS. No home runs, 7 RBIs, limited play time. But he's was a big part of our World Series team last year. What you think about it, Kenny?
Man, I'm pumped to see him back. He's kind of a guy that's a little bit slept on. I know Braves fans, you I don't want to say get your hopes up, but you get kind of excited about what the trade deadline can bring. And last year we had such a stellar performance at the trade deadline. Obviously, Alex Anthopoulos, AA, we call him. Dude's a stud. I mean, I think, in my opinion, he's the best GM in all of baseball.
Oh,
And he's just somebody, man. He's going to do whatever it takes to put you in a good position. We kind of hit on it yesterday with the Austin Riley contract and the press conference that followed shortly after, where he came on there and said very few words and just kind of gave the Braves fans a breakdown and said, hey, look, you guys keep selling out the stadium. You keep coming out to the Battery, supporting the team. We're going to contend. And you see that. You see the blessings that we receive from things like that, like locking down our third baseman long term. So I think Adrian's coming back. That's just it's another move that not a lot of people really, you may not have seen it coming or you may not have expected it, but he's a versatile player, man. He was such an integral part of the team last year, and he might not be your everyday starter, your everyday heavy hitter that's going to come out there, but I think he's a super key pickup for us, and I'm pumped to see him back on the squad.
it definitely wasn't a very flashy move, but AA is known to turn the not very flashy moves into very flashy moves. I'm not going to say Ari Adrianza is going to come out and be a superstar with the Braves, but he's definitely going to play a solid role with Atlanta. I mean, he did it last year. He stepped in big times last year, played a significant role throughout the. Not going to say throughout the playoff push, but he kept us where we were at the beginning of the season, and we didn't fall too far off when he was out there playing left field every day.
Yeah, and I think that's a big testament to just the players on the team and the coaching staff, and really just the environment of the locker room and the dugout. We have you see a common trend of guys coming in, whether they're struggling guys or just lesser known guys. They come in and it seems like they just fit and they really like it there. And I think it's a big testament to just the morale of the team and the bond that these guys have. And you see, you know, Guillermo Heredia out there chopping with bringing the sword out. So it's a unique I'll say a unique squad, and you got high morale all around the place. So when you got these guys coming in that might not be as highly touted of a trade target that as other guys, that the Braves just seem to have the magic touch, man. That they bring out the best in everybody. So Adrianza, he might just be the next one.
Yeah, and I'm sure, man. I'm sure he's pumped to be back in Atlanta, get off that future Nationals team after they pretty much trade their whole like main core away to get some prospects. And like you were just saying, he's just a versatile player. He'll help in the long term. I think the funny part of this deal, though, in corresponds to this deal, the Braves actually DFA'd Robinson Cano to make room for Ari Adrianza on the roster, and with that, the Robinson Cano era is officially over in Atlanta. Atlanta legend Robinson Cano.
Atlanta legend, as they always are.
Atlanta legend. He is still owed $40 million over the next or a little bit over $40 million actually, over the next 2 years by the New York Mets. So even when he's not helping the Braves on the field, he is helping us off the field.
Yeah, we appreciate that. Anytime you can hurt the competitors' pockets, boy, that sure does put a smile on my face.
That is true. Let's go to the next move. So the next move I have written down right here. The Braves received Robbie Grossman from the Detroit Tigers for minor league pitcher Chris Anglin. Kenny, what's your take on losing Mr. Chris Anglin from the farm system? I know it's a killer move.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you've heard it. We talked about it a little bit yesterday. You hear it from Braves fans. You hear it from people that oppose the Braves. The farm system is dead, and I think we can officially put the nail in the coffin with Chris Anglin. It's over. It was a good run. Proud to be a Braves fan, but I think I'll go ahead and hang my jerseys up and just hang my head and walk off.
I really have to ask you, this is a serious question. Have you ever heard the name Chris Anglin? Because I know I haven't. When I saw that news that he was the guy that was traded, I'm not saying Robbie Grossman is a superstar, but still, you see a guy like that get traded that you've never heard of. I think he was a pitcher in high A this year for the Braves with like a 4 ERA, so I don't know what his prospect status really was, but it was definitely an interesting name to see get thrown around for a major league caliber player.
Chris Anglin, man, don't you know he's the legendary magician? He had his TV shows. He was, pulling rabbits out of the hat, pulling playing deck cards out of the back of people. Oh wait, no, that's Chris Angel.
That might have been Chris Angel. That might have been Chris Angel. The guy that pushed the penny through his arm. Yeah.
I think this might be his cousin.
I would believe it. Yeah, it's all Chris Anglin, man. And I'm probably gonna be biting my tongue whenever about 5 years from now. He's the ace for the Detroit Tigers. Who knows? Everything could change in the future.
Oh yeah, he's gonna be the next Kevin Gossman.
So we're talking about Robbie Grossman, right? Robbie Grossman is legit one of the guys that would have fit on our category of players we listed on yesterday's podcast, but we didn't list him. He's the perfect platoon guy. The guy has a 999 OPS against lefties this year, and if you're gonna platoon a guy like that against with Rosario, that's a perfect situation.
And that just goes along with what AA and Snit were talking about bringing somebody in that mashes lefties. You want to bring in a nice bat that's going to go out there and get you those at bats versus lefties, and that's something that we're kind of nervous about, and a void that we needed to fill when Duvall went down with an injury. So this is another guy, man, Robbie Grossman. He's a notable player. He's a guy that's been around for a while. He's I think 30, 32, 33.
Yeah, somewhere on the wrong side of 30.
Yeah, but he's been around for a minute. He's got some time in, and he's not going to be an everyday starter by any means, but for sure, I mean, if you're trying to fill the void of bringing somebody in that can mash lefties, a 999 OPS sure does fit the bill in my opinion.
Yeah, and if this was a guy that the Braves picked up in the offseason, I would have been very excited about it. I mean, the dude mashed 23 home runs last year. He has 2 this year. I don't know where that decline came because he has like 300 at bats, but I mean, the guy has shown in the past he has like real major league power, which is a positive thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So my next one, and this one hurts. So Braves lose Will the Thrill. I think we can officially say thank you to Will Smith. All jokes aside, the guy went out in last year's postseason, had 11 innings pitched in the whole postseason, no earned runs, ended all 11 of those games he pitched in.
Yeah, man. I mean, baseball, it's a tough sport because on one hand, you see guys that have been an integral part of your team for years to come. Will Smith, he's a hometown guy too. He's from here, so I think him coming to the Braves was it got me excited. It got a lot of people excited, and obviously, thank you so much, Will Smith, for everything you've done for the squad. But unfortunately, in the MLB in particular, it's such a "what have you done for me lately" sport.
Oh yeah.
And Will the Thrill just it almost makes me wonder if you remember back at the start of this season when we made the move for Kenley and Kenley came in and you had AA and Snit sit down with Will and have the conversation of, hey, here's the deal. We're thinking about bringing Kenley Jansen in. Would you be open to maybe taking on a different role than you had last year? And it seemed like he was super willing, and he never really seemed like he was off to me, at least for his mentality. So he came in, and maybe he's not that stud closer. He's moving into more of a setup role or a different role, and so I was super optimistic about it. It seemed like he had a great attitude about it, but I'm almost wondering if maybe that just messed with him a little bit. And as the season went on, and as the appearances went on, and he got up there on the bump a little bit more, if maybe that just kind of jacked him up a little bit. And I think it makes me wonder, but I think that's probably got a little bit to do with it.
Yeah, one thing about Will, man, he's always been a competitor on the mound. I remember back in his Brewer days, I believe it was the Brewer days, Freddie Gonzalez called him out for having a shiny substance on his forearm, and he was cussing out the Braves bench from the thing. I believe it came back, it was sunscreen, but it was a really funny situation to see him come to Atlanta some years later. I know that the Astros probably are excited to see him. I mean, the numbers, if you look at the numbers, the ERA, all of those type of numbers, they kind of favor him a little bit because us as Braves fans seeing Will Smith pitch every night, I mean, it feels like the guy gives up a run at least an inning, and his ERA is like 3.6, 3.8. It might be in the fours now, but I mean, the guy's numbers aren't that bad. So Astros fans are probably looking at it like, it might be a pretty good move for him.
Oh yeah, and you kind of saw the social media trends and the a couple things went viral online of the Jake Odorizzi move, and all the Astro fans are like, yeah, good luck, guys. I don't know if you know this or not, but he's pretty bad. And I'm sitting here thinking all the Braves fans are like, I'll take your Jake Odorizzi and I'll raise you a Will Smith.
Yes, definitely raise your Will Smith, especially when we're going to be replacing him with the guy we'll talk about a little bit later in the podcast. First, I never really got to Odorizzi. I didn't even mention Odorizzi was the guy we brought back in the trade. What do you expect Odorizzi's role to be with the Atlanta Braves for the next couple weeks? We got a couple doubleheaders coming up, so there might be a role for a sixth starter for a little bit.
Well, I think number one, it gives us a little bit more of a cushion. It gives you a little bit of a blanket over that starting rotation to where, guys, I mean, you hear it time and time again, week after week. People are questioning Ian Anderson, saying, "Does he still have it? Does he still have it?" And he goes up there and deals, this past week and has a crazy appearance, and it kind of, makes me a little bit more confident in the situation. But Ian Anderson, he's a guy that he's been so solid for us. Obviously, he's locked down in the postseason. He's been incredible in the postseason. He doesn't crack under pressure. And for some reason, he's just kind of been off this year. And, I'm hoping that he kind of gets back to his old self and gets dialed back in to where he used to be. And I don't think that Jake Odorizzi by any means is going to mess that up. I don't think he was brought in as an Ian replacement, but you look at what we've got going on down at the AAA level and in the minor league system, and the next guy up, in my opinion, you've got the Bryce Elders of the world that have been up and they've got some action at the big league level. But Kyle Muller was really the guy that we were looking for, and not to say that he's out of it, but he does have the injury. They're working on the stent on the non-throwing hand, but to me, it just seems like a little bit of a cushion in case of an injury, in case you need to bring a guy in, like you said, maybe a sixth starter, double headers, long series coming up. So I like the move. I think I don't think he's going to be like a day one impact guy at all, but I like it, and I think it definitely gives us a little bit more flexibility.
Yeah, I'm really excited for it. We got those 5 games against the Mets in 4 days coming up this weekend, so he's definitely going to be a guy that we'll be able to throw out there for one of those 4-day, 5 games in 4 days. It's kind of a crazy thing. You got to use an extra starter in that situation. He'll be the perfect guy for that situation.
Absolutely.
And his numbers this year are good. I mean, Jake Odorizzi this year, and he's 4-3 with a 3.75 ERA. He has 46 strikeouts in 60 innings, and he has a 1.150 WHIP. His last start, he actually pitched against Seattle. He pitched 7 scoreless with 8 strikeouts, and I mean, the guy, his numbers are solid for a veteran guy to bring in.
No, I agree, man, and that just it goes back to what I was just saying a minute ago. Where is he going to be a day one big impact guy? I'm not sure. The plans could be there for like you hit on to come in during these crazy double headers and these long stints that we've got coming up. But for the most part, I just like him on the roster. I think he gives us a ton of flexibility. He gives us that cushion. He gives us that kind of veteran guy there in case we need him. And no, I'm super happy with it. I don't think it's a bad move at all, and I'm pumped that we get a guy like that in case we need another starter in the rotation.
That is very true. The last move we'll talk about, the last move the Atlanta Braves made, this is the one that came right around the 6 p.m. deadline. I think Alex Anthopoulos actually came out and said that it was a last minute deal, that it actually came into discussion like 2 minutes before the 6 p.m. deadline. And this is the Braves receiving closing pitcher from the Angels, Raciel Iglesias. And the guys we sent away Jesse Chavez and Tucker Davidson, but man, anytime you get a guy like Raciel Iglesias in a bullpen, especially whenever we need that hard-throwing righty in the back half of the pen, it's a great move, man. I'm so excited to see Raciel Iglesias in a Braves uniform.
Oh, I agree 100%. And in my opinion, what I kind of what was first laid on me and on my mind when I saw this come across is, to me, this eliminates the Spencer Strider to the bullpen take that a lot of people have. Number one, Spencer Strider has come in and he's a hard throwing guy. I know he's 101 on the mound, 100 on the mound, 99 consistently. So people look at him and they're like, oh yeah, bullpen guy, bullpen guy, bullpen guy. Well, I don't know if you saw it, but before the game tonight that we're playing right now against the Phillies, AA was in the booth, and Chip Carey straight up asked him, and I actually have the note here from. I thought it was pretty cool, so I took it down, and I'll read it to you. Chip Carey said, "What do you think about Spencer Strider going back to the bullpen? Is that a possibility? Is that something you're thinking?" And AA pretty much shut it down immediately and said, "Heck no, no way." And one thing I thought was pretty cool is he said, we're not counting innings. The Braves don't believe in limiting innings or counting innings that you pitch. You pitch until you're ready to come out, and when you come out, you rest until you're ready to go back in. So that's something that I think a lot of people have been cautious with Spencer Strider is, does he have that stamina? Does he have that ability as the season goes on? And Raciel Iglesias, man, I think he comes into the bullpen. He takes that mantle as a hard throwing righty. He's going to come in there. His numbers aren't stellar this year. He's got just over a 4 ERA. He's 2-6 on the season. But dude's got 16 saves, and he's got a nasty pitch split. Throws a sinker, changeup, four seam slider. Four seam averaging out right at about 95, 95.1 so far this year. So I like to see it.
Oh yeah, man. I'm really pumped to see that type of guy, and especially with Kirby Yates coming back in that back half of the bullpen. I mean, 3 years ago, you look back at it, 3 years ago, you would say that the Braves had three of the top 10 closers in baseball at the back half of that bullpen with Iglesias, Kirby Yates, and Kenley Jansen. I mean, those are not just like, terrible names to have, and I mean, they still all have it. I know we haven't seen Kirby Yates pitch in a while, and I know last time he pitched was in the COVID season. It was only like 1 or 2 outings, but whenever he was healthy, Kirby Yates was stellar. He was an amazing pitcher. He's going to be a big part of this Braves team when he comes back.
Absolutely. I'm pumped to see him come back. I'm super excited to have him on the squad.
One more thing about Iglesias, too, before we get off the topic. I believe Iglesias actually has, I don't have the numbers in front of me. I believe Iglesias has a little bit more like time on his contract, too. Apparently, the Braves are going to pay the remainder of his 4-year, $58 million deal that covers all the way to the 2025 season. But he could be like the legit player in that bullpen, and he might take the closing role next year when Kenley leaves in free agency.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely a possibility, and that just is another thing. You go back to kind of where we are right now as an organization in that whole area, and guys, I don't know if you Braves fans listening, local guys that are listening, if you've been to a game, if you've been to the bat, or if you've seen it. In my opinion, I think it's clearly the best sporting venue in any major sport in the United States.
Oh, it's electric. It is an electric venue for sure.
I mean, you got people. I mean, there's not to mention they're selling out the stadium every single night, just about. I think the Braves are, top three, and don't quote me on this, but top three, if not, top five in average attendance this year, which is huge. And that's something AA hit on with the Austin Riley contract that we mentioned a little bit ago. But bringing a guy like that, a guy that we're paying some money to. Honestly, I like to see it because they're kind of printing dollar bills out there in the Battery, and Liberty Media's got a handle on this whole thing. They're saying the Braves are expected to have a top 5 payroll in baseball moving forward, and this just goes to show, man. I don't think the Braves are. We've got that stigma behind the Braves that the Braves don't want to spend money, but I think this was super motivating to me because I'm like, oh yeah, we're out here, we're spending some money, we're bringing the guys in, we're not scared anymore.
Yeah, that's a fact. I'm looking at payroll numbers right now. For the Braves to get into the top 5 in payroll, the Braves would have to pass the Boston Red Sox at $200 million. As of right now, the Braves are we're sitting in 8th with $181 million. So that would be adding an additional $19 million to payroll next year, and $19 million might be Dansby Swanson. So hopefully that's the situation we run into. We can only hope. That is one thing I would like to talk to you, Kenny. What's your take on the Dansby contract? Where would you value Dansby at? If he was to hit free agency right now, where do you think that his value would be? Like, what type of deal do you think he would receive?
Man, that's a tough question. It's crazy in the league, specifically for a guy that plays Dansby's position. You're talking about a shortstop. Obviously, shortstops they get all the action. They're out there making plays left and right. So, and a guy like Dansby, who is kind of, I mean, I don't want to say he's a late bloomer because we've seen this good play from him on occasion. He's just been a little bit streaky, and it was a little bit concerning to Braves fans, myself included, when Dansby started playing this well this early, because we're like, okay, is Dansby, is he on pace to have another one of his crazy streaks and then fall off again? And the dude just has it. Like, in my opinion, now I'm starting to wonder: is this the real Dansby? Is this the consistent Dansby that we've been hoping to see? Like, it just maybe took him a little bit to get here, and now that he's here, he's going to stay here. In my opinion, I think it is. I think this is the guy. I'd be super disappointed to see him go. I know there's, you got the Trey Turners of the world that are going to be free agents at season's end. So I don't honestly, man, I don't even know where to start. So this might be a better question for you. All I know as a Braves fan is, bring him back, pay the man.
So, in a dream world, the number I've been thinking about this today, the number that I am coming up with in my head, and it might seem a little bit low. I'm hoping that we might be able to snag a Dansby Swanson for like a 5-year, $75 million deal. That would be $15 million annually. If Dansby starts to work his way up, or if he starts to play his way into a $20 million deal annually, I'm kind of nervous that he might play his way right out of the Braves price range and then go right into one of the other high market teams' price range.
Yeah, that's the concern. I think that's you're definitely not wrong in that, and I think that's kind of the same concern for a lot of people across the board. So, absolutely.
I mean, I think the guy is I think he ranks sixth in WAR or something this year. Some crazy thing that you would never expect Dansby Swanson to rank that high in. And the guy's performing. Dansby, he's a Georgia boy, so we can only hope we bring him back. And like you said, the Austin Riley thing is very good to see, and hopefully it's just more good news to come with Dansby Swanson being an Atlanta Brave for years to come too.
Oh yeah, I mean it's just it goes to show, man. I mean Dansby Swanson was undoubtedly the should have been the NL starter for shortstop in the All-Star game. I know they gave it to Trey Turner, but I mean statistically and all across the board, he's having a better year than Trey. I know Trey is Trey, and Trey's going to ball, and he's who he is, and obviously you talk about top shortstops in the league, the dude is number 1 or number 2 on just about everybody's list, but you look at just this season alone. I know it's a fan voted event, so it's something that's not the most consistent, but Dansby should have been up there. I know he was just behind him in votes. I think it was like 51% to 49% as far as the starting, competition went, and I think he's going to get paid accordingly.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, he'll make some money this offseason. Let's jump into the next thing. I wanted to go before we get into the other teams' trade deadlines. I would like to go ahead and say that the Braves had the NL Rookie of the Month today and the NL Player of the Month today with Spencer Strider and Austin Riley. This month, Austin Riley's July stats: he hit 423 with a 460 on base percentage, an 885 slugging. That adds up to a 1.344 OPS. Not to mention the record-breaking 26 extra base hits. That was 11 home runs and 15 doubles. I want to ask you what you think about Austin Riley's July, but I feel like I might already know the answer. But go ahead and give me some stuff on it. What you thinking, Kenny?
I mean, it's crazy, man. I mean, it's absolutely nuts. and we literally have not seen anything like it. The closest we've seen was Chipper, and I believe 99.
99 MVP
Um,
season.
yeah, MVP season. Is that the year that Chipper also was not an All-Star?
I believe Chipper was not an All-Star that year. Yes, I think you're correct
Yeah.
on that.
Austin Riley got in the game. I know he got kind of shafted there in the beginning stages of everything, but Chipper, man, I mean, Braves great, first ballot Hall of Famer, the greatest third baseman of all time. You talk about a guy like Chipper Jones, and you're comparing him to a guy that we've got on the team right now. You're comparing him to anybody. I don't care who you are, whether you're a Brave or another team. If you're comparing somebody to Chipper Jones, they're Austin Riley knows ball.
Austin Riley definitely knows ball. And I'm just doing a little live check-in on the Braves game right now because, we're playing the Phillies. Time check, it's 9:36 p.m. Eastern time. Currently, the Braves game's in the top of the sixth. 9-1 Braves. I don't know what happened, but I wanted to check in on it because the NL Rookie of the Month is actually pitching today. Spencer Strider. Spencer Strider in the month of July, 5 starts, 2-1 with a 2.7 ERA, 41 strikeouts in 26 and 2/3 innings. The most crazy part about his July, he had a 158 opponent batting average through those 5 starts. That is insane. And not to mention today, he's 5 1/3 deep with only 2 hits and earned run, a walk, and 10 strikeouts. So he just keeps on doing it, man. Huckleberry is a machine.
Dude, it's nuts. I mean, you see a guy like this come in, and it fired us up at the beginning of the year. I know you and I were both on the Spencer Strider train before we even saw this dude. We're like, please give us a hard throwing starter. Give us a hard throwing starter. We want to see somebody step up on the bump, throw 101 at your face, and you can't do anything about it. And sure enough, when you got stuff like that, man, and you step into the game and you're out there just absolutely chucking fastballs, and you throw a slider in the dirt, and dudes can't even differentiate between the two. And then, not to mention, this dude's a rookie. I mean, this dude is nuts. And I'm just thankful that he's on the team because could you imagine how the Braves play? We live by the long ball, die by the long ball. This dude's on the mound against us. I don't even think we could touch him with a tennis racket.
He's legit like little Degrom, man. And I need to stop. I need to stop looking at this live Braves because 5 2/3 with 11 strikeouts now. So he's adding on to the numbers slowly. He's a machine. He's the man with the thick thighs on the mound, got the tight pants style. Was never a fan of it, but a guy like that can rock it. I am fully supportive of it, and it looks a lot better than Walker Buehler.
Yeah, and you were asking, you don't know what happened. I'll tell you what happened. Dansby Swanson happened. Dude's 3 for 4 right now with an RBI. Eddie Rosario's 2 for 3 with 3 RBIs.
Don't forget Orlando. Don't forget
Orlando. We talked about him yesterday. Even Ozuna, man, 2 for 3. I mean, the guys that we needed to see heat up are heating up right now. And boy, is it perfect timing because we're going to New York. We're gonna face the Mets, and we're gonna. Ooh, man. I mean, 3 games back right now. I think the Mets are losing right now. Boy, could this be the week that the Braves take the division lead?
I sure hope so, man. Whenever we get to a little bit of NL East coverage a little bit later on, we'll check a little bit of live box scores and see what the race is kind of stacking up to be. Let's go ahead and get into the other trades that happened today and yesterday. I have a couple of them written down. Is there any one in particular you want to talk about? I know the big one that we all want to talk about, but I'll let you take the stage.
I'll tell you what, and I want to hit on one more thing before we move on. It's one point that I kind of discussed yesterday with you off air. I'm kind of curious. This goes back to the Dansby Swanson situation, the Austin Riley contract. I'm a little bit curious with the trade deadline and everyone expecting these crazy trades, and Austin Riley signs that 10-year deal. I'm almost wondering if Dansby has an offer on the table or if they're in negotiations right now. So I'm hopeful that we're in talks to get this dude extended and keep him in Atlanta right now. So I just wanted to throw that out there before we move on that, I've got high hopes for Dansby, and I'm wondering if that Austin Riley contract is a kind of a telltale sign that maybe they're working on something for him too.
Yeah, the thing with Dansby is like right now the ball is in Dansby's court. Like Dansby can do whatever Dansby wants to do because he's already played at such a high level this year, and even the power numbers last year would have got him paid. And
yeah,
honestly, like other than Atlanta being where he's from, there's nothing stopping him from hitting free agency and just getting those big contract offers and then coming back to the Braves like, oh, this team offered me $21 million. Can you up that? Like, it's kind of we're kind of in the situation now where I would love to see an extension because I feel like it would be very beneficial for the Braves, but I don't know if that would be something that Dansby would be willing to do. And honestly, it's not the smartest thing to do. You might as well, like, if I was him, you go out and hit free agency and try to use those offers to, try to persuade the Braves and giving you a little bit more money.
Yeah, and it's funny to think about. You talk about the arbitration hearing. I heard Dansby talk about in an interview. It's crazy to think that Dansby is coming up through the Braves organization. He's born and raised Atlanta guy, and obviously a Braves fan for life. And the organization loves him. The fan base loves him. And you're sitting in an arbitration hearing against the organization that you play for and you're balling for, and they're just sitting there telling you about how bad you are, trying to get your value down. So that's a funny thing to think about. But man, Dansby, yeah, ball's definitely in his court. I mean, he's got all the leverage in the world. If he wanted to walk out there and see what teams are offering him, he absolutely could. He seems like he's an Atlanta guy. I hope he is, and I want to keep him here. But yeah, I'm interested to see how that plays out.
Okay, I think we can cover a little bit more on Dansby as the season goes on. We got plenty of time with him. I'm sure if a big contract extension was to happen tomorrow, we'd have coverage of it. So we'll get to Dansby a little bit later down the road. So trades. I'll go ahead and break this in. The first one that everybody's going to be talking about. Padres received superstar, arguably one of the greatest hitters for a guy at his age. I would probably say the greatest hitter for a guy at his age. The guys you put him with are crazy. Juan Soto, left fielder from the Washington Nationals, goes to the Padres, along with first baseman Josh Bell, who's honestly playing like a top 5 first baseman in baseball this year.
Absolutely, man. Josh Bell, super slept on part of that deal. I mean, he's going to change things around, especially when you talk about the whole dynamic with Eric Hosmer and all that, drama that went out today. I mean, they lost. I mean, and nobody's really talked about it because Juan Soto's gotten so much, media time and media attention. But not only did the Padres bring him in, but they brought in an amazing first baseman, a guy who's batting 300 this year. He's smacking the ball around. He's a switch hitter. He's a franchise player. And they got rid of Eric Hosmer and Luke Voigt today, so they lost both of their first basemen. And bring a guy like Josh Bell. That's a scary team.
Oh yeah, I think that's definitely a significant upgrade over both those guys. This is a team that come October, in the middle of their lineup, you're going to run into Juan Soto, Josh Bell, Fernando Tatis, and Manny Machado. Along with, not to mention, their starters, Joe Musgrove, Yu Darvish, and Blake Snell. Like, those, that's going to be a really scary team to play in the playoffs, and I hope that the Braves do not have to meet them.
And Joe Musgrove just got the bag, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure that probably got him a little bit fired up. Musgrove got pumped up. And to be fair, they did give away quite a package. Going to the Nationals, they get left-handed pitcher Mackenzie Gore. Guy's a stud. Guy's having a crazy year this year. They also get shortstop C.J. Abrams. We all know about C.J. Abrams. His numbers might not look fantastic, but the guy's has been a top-tier prospect for a reason. The tools are there. The talent's there. He'll pan out. And then they also get a whole plethora of prospects. Now the Nationals have Robert Hassel, James Wood, and Jarlin Susana. Those are all top 10 guys in their organization right now. Like, they definitely reloaded. And that doesn't count them trading Max Scherzer last year, brought in Keibert Ruiz and Josiah Gray. So their young core is going to be insane.
Yeah, I mean, C.J. Abrams, dude, he's 21 years old. Dude was born in 2000. He's a hometown boy, too.
Is he really the Georgia guy?
Yeah, he went to Blessed Trinity, I believe.
Oh, that's awesome, man. That's something I didn't know. Maybe I'm a C.J. Abrams fan now.
Yeah, dude's a freak, man. I know his numbers might not be stellar, but like I said, dude, 21 years old. You're out there. This guy had all the attention in the world because he came in. He was the shortstop that was supposed to fill in for Fernando Tatis. Talk about some shoes to fill. Yeah,
definitely. I'm looking back at his minor league numbers, man. At 21 earlier this year in AAA, man, 314 with 7 bombs and 140 at bats. The guy got. I mean, that's legit power numbers for a guy that's a pretty lanky guy.
Oh, absolutely. And I just checked on it. Yeah, he's from Alpharetta.
Alpharetta, nice. Also, is there anybody else you want to cover in here? You want to talk about Mackenzie Gore? I know Mackenzie Gore's kind of spoke for himself this year with what he's been able to accomplish. So, I mean, those type of guys, you bring them into your thing, you have a great core. Mackenzie Gore's numbers aren't fantastic, but I mean, like you were just saying, the guy's a young starting pitcher. Young starters are like like basically the currency of MLB nowadays, and he's a lefty, so he has a lot of talent, a lot of potential.
Oh yeah, man. We could talk about Mackenzie Gore all day. Dude's an absolute dog.
Oh, what? Wait. Oh, well. So let's go to the next. We're gonna also stick with the Padres here. Padres bring in the guy that you had mentioned on the podcast yesterday, Brandon Drury, for I believe they traded away Victor Acosta, and he's not quite rated yet on Cincinnati's top prospects, but he was the Padres' number 6 prospect. What do you think about that move?
Man, Brandon Drury, I mean, obviously he was what, number 3 on my list for targets that I would love to see the Braves go after. He's a guy that a lot of people were curious to see if the Reds were going to trade him because he is such a great dude, or such a great player, I should say. Seems like a good guy as well, a good locker room guy, a good dugout guy. People were kind of curious to see if they were going to try and keep him and build that team around him. So you let him go, especially to a perennial contender like the Padres for years to come. That's scary, man. I mean, this team's loading up. You know, they're lineup rivals a lot of other teams in the league right now, and you add a guy like that, and it just brings a whole new dynamic to the squad.
Yeah, he's the perfect guy, man. Like you said, he plays every position. If anybody gets hurt, you just throw him out there, and you have a plus bat in your lineup. So that's really an awesome move. I wanted to go ahead and cover the Padres. I don't want to cover every single team. We'd be here all night if we did. But the Padres, they just had such a crazy deadline. You had to go ahead and throw it out there. I do though want to cover the NL East teams. The Phillies made quite a few trades today. The Phillies made deals with the Angels and they made deals with the Cubs. Two separate deals with the Angels. The first one that we had seen, Brandon Marsh goes to the Phillies in exchange for catcher Logan O'Hoppe. Hoop? I don't know, but I mean, Brandon Marsh, friend of the podcast. He's not really a friend, but he's from Buford, so I mean, Georgia boy. We claim him. But
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't feel like I've kept up with Brandon Marsh as much as I should, but just knowing his prospect caliber and all that stuff. I'm pulling up stats right now. Knowing his prospect caliber and stuff, I feel like that they might have got an absolute steal. Oh, he's batting 226. Okay. Maybe I might be a little too high on Mr. Brandon Marsh.
Well, and he's just a crazy athlete in general. I mean, you talk about a team like that that's picking up a guy like this. I mean, Brandon Marsh, he's a young guy, obviously hometown kid. He's got a lot of upside, I think, and I think you land your future stud in the outfield, and whether this guy pans out to be the next Mike Trout, no one can really say, and I don't think that that's kind of what you're looking for, but. I mean, you don't write this guy off. I mean, he's quick. He's a great base runner. He's going to go out there and give you some positive production. So I think this is when you talk about making moves and bringing a guy in, I don't think it's something that should be slept on. I think Brandon Marsh is definitely a guy for the future.
Yeah, definitely so. And he's going to the Phillies. I'm gonna give a little hometown reference. This is the same guy that lost the state championship to Locust Grove High School whenever we had played them in the state championship, and now he's just gonna lose to the Atlanta Braves. So just a guy that's used to losing to teams that I root for.
Yeah, I mean, they always say the worst hope is false hope. So, the more false hope we can give our contenders, the better I am. I mean, you talk about the Phillies. This team came in here super, super pumped about this season. They're playing good ball. I mean, it's crazy to think that the NL East, the top 3 teams, are playing as good as they are. But you bring in a guy like this, and I'd love to see him do well. You put him in a Phillies uniform, and that's just not the case anymore.
That is a fact. And Mr. Marsh, I hope if you're listening to this podcast or if you ever get to it, YouTube, whatever you want to listen to it on, it's all love. We're big fans, actually. I'm a big fan of Brandon Marsh. I root for you to do the best. Just not against the Atlanta Braves and not whenever it gets to clutch time and late in the season. Let's go to the next move. Okay, so we have 2 different ones I can choose from, and I'm sitting here looking at them, trying to figure out which one's the best move for the Phillies. I mean, the Phillies had a pretty good deadline. Let's go to Syndergaard. The other trade that the Phillies made with the Angels, they brought in Noah Syndergaard. They traded Mickey Moniak and outfielder Jadiel Sanchez. I'm not too familiar with Jadiel Sanchez, but I know Mickey Moniak was former number 1 overall pick.
Yeah, absolutely. And Noah Syndergaard, man, he's a guy that's been in the league for a while. He's a noted starter. He's going to give you some positive production, especially for a team like that where they could really, really use it. You look at his numbers this year; they're not incredible. I mean, he's 5-8. He's got a 3.8 ERA. Started 15 games this season. He's a good player. I mean, Noah Syndergaard, we saw him a lot. I mean, you talk about NL East. I mean, this guy's been around. He's coming back. We got a lot of familiarity with him, and it's a good pickup for them. It's a guy that we kind of hit on a little bit yesterday. It could be a potential suitor for the Braves to go after, and I think it was reported on a little bit that we were one of the 3 teams that were kind of in talks with him, and he ends up going to a rival, and good pitcher, a guy that we're going to have to face, and I'm looking forward to it. We've had some success against him in the past, so I don't have any reason to believe any different now.
Yeah, I think the Odorizzi deal kind of knocks out the whole Syndergaard thing. I know that there's always reports after a move's already made that the team's still interested, but I always kind of believe that that's just the Braves making a call on Syndergaard before the Odorizzi thing. Like, I don't think the Braves would want to
Right.
bring in a guy like Syndergaard after we already brought in Odorizzi. But Syndergaard, like I said, I'm high on him. I mean, I mentioned he was my number two on the guys I wanted the Braves to bring in. He's a guy that in the past he's had success and he has electric stuff. So, I mean, he could be a really good pickup for the Phillies. And if not, I mean, you didn't give up much. Like, Mickey Moniak's a former number one overall pick, but the guy has like a 130 career batting average. And he fell down the prospect ranks rather quickly in Philadelphia.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, Mickey Moniak, he he is what he is. We don't really need to to dive more into that.
All right, the last move and the biggest move for the Phillies to me. The Phillies send the Cubs. Ben Brown. He's now the 11th prospect. He's a right-handed pitcher. He's a pretty decent little pitcher. But they bring in right-handed reliever David Robertson. Man, David Robertson. I can't talk enough about David Robertson. David Robertson is one of those guys. It just seems like when he comes out and pitches against you, he is so tough to hit. And the man is 37 years old. He's not slowing down. He has the 2.23 ERA in 36 games this year with 14 saves. And that's with the Cubs. So the saves numbers will be way up on a winning team.
No, dude, he's a freak, and that's something that I feel like you're seeing a little bit more of as far as relievers in the league go. I mean, I don't know if David Robertson's got the TB12 method going or what. He's eating avocado ice cream. He's getting massages on the weekend, but he's literally not aging.
No, I agree, and it's like you just said, TB12 method. I think Jesse Chavez. I'm pretty sure he'll just keep on coming back to the Braves every year and getting traded
Oh,
away, or
and I'd love to see it.
or signing somewhere on a minor league deal and making it back all the way until he's 50 years old. Because I think Jesse's already like 38 right now, and he's still doing it. He's still throwing his
Yeah,
little 89-mile-per-hour cutter, and he's getting outs.
absolutely.
I think the last move I have, like the really big one that happened. I know the Mets made a trade like a couple weeks ago, and they brought in Vogel back, and they brought in an outfielder. I don't remember who it was particularly, but the trades that we're covering on the deadline. This was a very sleeper trade because I did not see what the Marlins got back on this trade until I got home and started doing a little bit of research. The Marlins trade relief pitchers Anthony Bass and Zach Pop, and they bring in shortstop Jordan Groshans from Toronto. That was a little bit of a surprising deal, and I saw that return.
Yeah, that was surprising, and I think you know you see, and I don't want to say that I follow them closely, but the Blue Jays are kind of a fun team to watch, especially they're not really a team that plays during the same time as the Braves. So obviously, I try again at all 162 games for the Braves. So, but I see a lot of the Blue Jays, and you hear a lot just in general, and you know as guys that follow the sport as closely as we do, Jordan Groshans, man, I mean people have been high on him forever. I mean, dude came in, he's a if you're a gamer, he's an MLB The Show legend from last year. So
Oh yeah,
yeah, that was that kind of surprised me, man. I think a lot of Jays fans were the same way, kind of like what are we doing here? So that definitely surprised me, and the dude's gonna be a freak, I think.
yeah. I looked at the stats, man. He's had good years in the minor leagues every year. This year's been a little bit of a slow year, but it's his first year playing in AAA. So I mean, he's pushing the major league level, and I mean the Marlins already have to me. And I'm a Braves fan, but the Marlins have a great future ahead of them with that pitching staff and some of the young guys they have with Jazz, and now they have Groshans, and like their pitching is insane in the minor leagues. Yuri Perez, Max Meyer, Eduardo. I mean, I about said Eduardo. Edward Cabrera. I mean, it's not even to mention Sandy Alcantara and Pablo Lopez, who's already up there performing. Sixto Sanchez. Hold up, let me get the last name in there.
Oh yeah, dude. I mean, look, the Marlins, they like you just said, they've got a very bright future. I'm, just about 99.9% sure that these guys they'll develop, they'll come up to the big leagues, they'll turn into studs, perennial MVP candidates, and they'll trade them to the Yankees. So, but I don't know. Derek Jeter made his departure, so they got rid of the whole controversy. But the Marlins, man, it just seems like they're producing these stud players, and they've been doing it for years and years and years. And then they get up to the major league level, and they're just like, yeah, why don't you go kick rocks?
That is a fact. They had a core of Christian Yelich, Mike Stanton, aka Giancarlo Stanton, Mike Stanton back in the day. The late great Jose Fernandez, Christian Yelich. I don't know if did I already mention Christian Yelich. Was that one of the names I said?
That was the first one.
Marcelo Zuna, JT Realmuto. I mean, they had so many guys in the teams, and they were still bad. I like the Marlins. I feel like if I had to root for an NL East team outside of the Braves, the Marlins would be my go-to. But I think the only reason I'm saying that is because they're never like super competitive, other than the COVID season when they somehow made the playoffs when every single team in baseball made the playoffs.
Yeah. No, dude, the Marlins they're a team like that. They're such an easy team to hate and an easy team to love in the same sentiment. It's crazy to think about, all the stud players that have come through that organization and just been dealt. So it's nuts, man. I can't imagine being a Marlins fan. So I'm sure they've got super high hopes right now, but they're trying to keep their expectations very, very low.
That is a fact. And yeah, I think that might wrap it up on our trade deadline stuff. That again, there's been a lot of trades today. It's been a very busy day. I would like to say before we get out here, Eric Hosmer is a legend. I don't know if we covered. I know we talked about him a little bit, but Eric Hosmer is a legend by turning down the deal to the Nationals. Smart man. Nobody wants to go there and play. But then he got traded to the Red Sox, correct?
Yeah, Red Sox. So Eric Hosmer's situation was kind of unique to me for a couple reasons, but the primary reason for me is, I mean, Eric Hosmer, man, dude is. I know he's not having the best production in the world, but he's a guy that's been around for a minute. He's a highly respected player. He's got a no trade clause in his contract. I don't even understand from an organizational perspective, from a player perspective, how can you even negotiate a deal on this guy's behalf to send him to a team where he may or may not even want to go per his contract that you presented him and agreed upon? Like, how is that even a thing? It makes no sense to me. So, at first thought, I was like, is this just going to be one of those situations where he just kind of sucks it up and does, what everyone wants him to? And everyone said, oh, Padres are gonna hate him. Fans are gonna hate him. He's gonna get booed. Well, guess what? He's still not there, and he got a much better end of the deal than going down to Washington. So props to him.
Especially in like one of the biggest trade packages of all time. Like everybody was so amped up for this trade to happen. Everybody was reporting that the trade was a done deal, and all of a sudden it's hold up. Eric Hosmer does not want to go to Philadelphia. Or not Philadelphia, I'm sorry, Washington. Eric Hosmer doesn't go to Washington. So we legit pushed back the Juan Soto trade. Like I said, one of the best hitters of all time at his age. Just because a guy like Eric Hosmer does not want to go to Washington.
Right, and then they end up getting Luke Voigt as a concession.
Yeah, Hosmer went to Voigt. He said, yeah, man, you're going to have to suck it up. You're going to go play with losers. I'm going to go play with losers, by the way, too, because I'm also going to Boston, who's not very good at baseball. Somehow. But, I mean...
Yeah. Look, the GM called him. He answered the phone. He hung up the phone. He walked over to Luke Voigt's locker and said, hey, bud, how you doing? Quick question. Do you have a no trade clause in your contract? Luke Voigt was like, no, I don't. Oh, okay.
Okay, but yeah, you're gonna look really good. You're gonna look really good in DC. I'm just gonna let you know, Luke. I'm rooting for Luke, by the way. Luke's a legend. not against Atlanta, but Luke is Luke. I'm rooting for him. I know it's a crappy situation to see that you almost got to stick around with the playoff contending Padres, and all of a sudden now you're getting shipped off to Washington.
That's tough.
All right, Kenny. I know we have the next thing we're gonna cover is gonna be a little bit of NL East team rankings. Do you want to do this first? I feel like that I might want to let you do this first because this is your like entry. So I'm gonna let you do this first. Sound good?
Yeah, that sounds good to me, man. I mean, obviously we're Braves fans. This is a hometown podcast where majority talking local sports. 90% of the time. If you want to ask me what I think about the division standings right now and where we'll be, a couple months from now heading into the postseason, it's not a question. I think the Braves are gonna five-peat. We've won the division 4 years in a row. The Mets are the Mets. They're gonna flake out. They're gonna do the same thing they do every year. Is the team significantly better than it used to be? Absolutely, 100% from the starting rotation to the bullpen. You got guys like Edwin Diaz. You got a completely revamped batting lineup. They made a couple trades. They got a couple guys in there. You got Pete Alonso doing deadlifts with 135 on the hex bar wearing cleats.
Absolute machine, absolute menace.
Yeah, dude. I mean, it's a unique situation, I'll say, and I'm not trying to sound like some crazy homer standing up here saying, "Oh, I'm not worried about the Mets at all," but I'm not worried about the Mets at all.
No, I agree. That's my apologies. I completely forgot about the NL East coverage. We'll dive into that just a little bit. And I have to say, I completely agree. I do think the NL East is a division that's going to have 3 playoff teams. This is my thing. I do think that Philadelphia is going to be able to jump St. Louis. And I think that the Braves are going to pass the Mets. So I think that the Braves will win the NL East. We'll take that second spot. I don't think anybody in the NL is going to pass the Dodgers in record-wise. But I think the wild card teams right now, I think we're going to see the Padres. I think we're going to see the Phillies. And I think we're going to see the Mets.
Yeah, there's actually a chart that comes out every year that talks about postseason percentage, and of course, it's not actual percentages. It's just projected percentages, I guess you could say. That had the Mets and the Braves on there talking about what's the percentage, the chance that they make the playoffs, and I think the Mets were actually a 100% chance they make the playoffs, and the Braves were 99.1. So, and I'm not saying that to sound like we're okay with second place, we're okay with not winning the NL East, because absolutely we want to win it, and absolutely we are going to win it. Super confident in that, and I think you're going to see that in a big series coming up with the Mets. We play 5 games against those dudes, with a doubleheader in there. So no, I'm not too worried about it, man. I think we're going to make that jump. We're going to Braves are going to Brave, Mets are going to Met, and I think you're going to see things regress to the mean. The Braves are going to take that mantle and keep rocking, but at some point you got to think. We're going to cross paths, whether it's in the postseason. Obviously, we're going to cross paths beforehand. But the Mets are a team where, regardless of where this NL East standings or where these NL East standings finish at regular season's end, these are both postseason teams, and they're both teams that are capable of winning a World Series. I just think the Braves lineup from head to toe is hands down better than the Mets. So I'm not too concerned about it as far as the NL East goes.
Yeah, I feel like the NL Central is kind of the weak point in the NL right now. I feel like the NL East has two legit teams that can win a World Series, and the NL West has two legit teams that can win a World Series now with the Padres making some additions. Like, if the Central wasn't around, I'm not too high on the Brewers, I'm not too high on the Cardinals, but, like, I guess they gotta make it at this point. I mean, they have good records, like, don't get me wrong, but I think there's four legit contenders right now in the NL, one of them being the Braves.
Yeah, and our perception of everything's kind of watered down right now, especially when it's easy to throw last season out the window when you're talking about where we are now versus where we were and how we were battling 500 going into the All-Star break, and now we're sitting here 21 games over 500. It's a crazy position to be at, and to think that the Braves are over 20 games over 500 and don't have the division lead. But that's just kind of that's what's going on right now. You've got great teams. Teams are learning, to be a part of this NL East and to attempt to be a contender and build a World Series type roster. This is the kind of run you've got to go on, man. I mean, the Mets are up there with one of the best records in the entire league, and we're sitting here talking about, are the Braves going to pass them in the division? And that's just a crazy thing to think about. I mean, imagine if we were another fan base having the same conversation, saying we're 21 games over 500, and are we going to win the division? Like, that's a crazy thing to think, and that's just a testament to the NL East and how these teams have had to build around. And I think you can thank the Braves for that, for kind of running this ship for the past, however many years. I mean, we've won it 4 years in a row. Obviously, we're going for 5 now, so it's crazy to think about. But yeah, for sure, just like you said, you've got 2 World Series contenders and genuine World Series contenders. Like, these teams can stack up with anybody and make a run.
No, I believe it for sure. I think that's good enough on the NL East talk. What you think? You think that's enough?
Yeah, man, I agree. I think we covered just about everything. I mean, NL East right now, it's kind of a 2-man race, and we definitely dove in there and covered it.
Yeah, and this is something we could hop back on every single time we hop on. Just give a brief little update on what's going on around the NL East. I think we're 3.5 games back. Hopefully today, if scores stand still, we'll be 2.5 games back, which is gonna be really nice. Get us a little bit closer in the race. Next up, we got a little SEC team rankings. Kenny,
Let's go.
let's get to you, sir. I'm gonna let you jump on in it. We got the thing up. Everything's good to go. So where do you want to start? Start wherever you want to.
All right, man. Look, I'm pumped that we get to dive into some college football. It's starting to get that time of year. It's obviously hot as you know what out here in Georgia right now, so we don't really have that chill in the air that we're ready for. But boy, are we ready! I'm ready to fire up, put on the sweatpants, put on the jeans and boots, throw my hoodie on, and go outside. Drink a couple cold beers and watch the dogs go out there and rout South Carolina like we always do.
Real quick. What's your preferred beer? Let's get a preferred beer going.
No, I mean I'm a Miller Lite guy, but preferred beer. It's in my tier list. Number one, Miller Lite. Number two, the next beer in the cooler.
Oh, now we're talking. Now we're talking. We're on the same page. Miller Lite's the way to go. I'll let you get back to the legit podcast stuff. Go ahead.
Oh man, I mean, I'm super pumped. This is the first time on the podcast we're diving into some college ball, and you can definitely expect to see a lot more of this, especially as we get closer. I mean, you got the NFL season coming up. I mean, in my opinion, football season starts as soon as the Hall of Fame game kicks off. So that's in 2 days, and man, I am pumped. So let's dive into this, man. The SEC. you've kind of seen the hierarchy of the SEC change in recent years, I would say, in my opinion, from Bama running things individually for so long, and UGA. I saw a stat the other day that said from 2009 to 2015, I want to say, UGA had an average of like 9.1 wins per season, calculating, prorating that with the COVID year, or not the COVID year, but prorating that with bowl wins, and then from 15 to now, it's like 11 and a half. So you're talking about a team that's in here contending with Bama year after year. I know we're two separate sides of the SEC, and the East is, sadly, much weaker than the West, and it looks like it's probably going to be that way for at least a couple more years. You got some teams that are on the uptrend, so I'm super excited to dive into this and talk about what we're expecting SEC wise. So I'll kick it off. You see my rankings up there on the board on the graphic. SEC East, interesting year. You've got a couple teams that made a couple moves in the offseason, brought in a couple transfers. You've got some recruiting classes that are really starting to step in from years past. You were going to get some serious playing time. Obviously, we're Dogs fans, and whether or not you're a Dog fan, I think you are going to agree that on pretty much everybody's list, if you're going power rankings, the Dogs are going to be your number one. Especially in the East, man. Like I said, it's a little bit weaker, so we can hit on that a little bit and talk about what we've got. But we're returning a lot of players. We lose a couple guys to the draft, but we're bringing back first round draft prospects this year on both sides of the ball. You're talking about bringing a quarterback back in Stetson Bennett, who is super disrespected. I mean, people have been crapping on Stetson for however long, and it's 100% without merit. You talk about a guy that's fourth in air yards last year, second in yards per completion. Stetson is experienced. He knows the offense just about as well as anybody else. I think, going into this season, he's going to be 28 years old, so he's got a little bit of experience. Um, no, man, the Dogs are the clear number one for me, so we'll dive into that later. But number two, I've got Kentucky on my power rankings. This might be a little bit of a hot take, depending on what your views on the SEC East are. But they're bringing it back. They're bringing back in a lot of people's opinions, a top five quarterback in this upcoming year in all of college football, not just the SEC, and Will Levis. Dude's a stud. They've got a great running game. They've got Chris Rodriguez. I'm not too sure what his status is. He's a hometown guy. I know he got into a little bit of a trouble. I want to say a DUI charge back in May or June. So they were talking a little bit about him missing some time, suspension, not getting suspended. I'm not sure. We'll have to keep you updated on that and kind of see. But they lost a lot of guys, specifically the offensive line. Kentucky's a team that has been on the rise here as of late. We play them last year. We play them every single year, so we get to see them and get super familiar with them. I mean, a guy like Will Levis, even when they're getting routed by Georgia and that Georgia defense, you talk about, arguably the greatest college, football defense, at least in recent years, to my knowledge and to a lot of people. I mean, this dude's stepping up in the pocket. He's delivering throws on time. He's making crazy plays. He's going to be a guy. So I've got Kentucky at number two pretty much strictly because of him. I think when you have a quarterback like that, he can keep you in a lot of games. At number three, I've got South Carolina. I'm not super high on South Carolina for one reason in particular, and that is Spencer Rattler. You talk about a guy that was projected to be the number one quarterback in college football last year. We can dive into Spencer Rattler as much as you want to. I'm not super high on him for one reason in particular, and it's that Oklahoma situation, man. I mean, Oklahoma is known to be the most quarterback-friendly program, at least in the Lincoln Riley area, in probably college football history. You're talking about producing Heisman candidates year after year, and I know you've got some studs in there like Baker and Kyler, and then you bring Jalen Hurts in, and he goes off. But to see a guy like Spencer Rattler, and as highly touted as he is, and as much as people are talking about him and banging that drum, come in there and struggle and get benched, that just goes to show that I'm not sure this guy really has got a hold on his game from a team perspective. You talk about the arm talent. He's got the arm talent. He's got a cannon attached to that shoulder. He can make every throw. He makes these crazy hot passes, Patrick Mahomes-esque throws. But when you step into that game and you're really getting down to the X's and O's, man, it's he's got a little bit of a fall off for me. So that's why I've got them there in the number three spot. And it's a little bit of a debate between them and Tennessee. The only reason I've got Tennessee right here in my number four behind South Carolina is because Tennessee is Tennessee. This goes back to how we were just talking about the Mets. Tennessee seems to get hype every single year. You've got players, or not players, but fans coming out this year saying we're going to win 10 games. We're going to win 10 games. Here's the deal, man. They're not going to win 10 games. I think they're over under set at 7.5, and I think that's about right. You get 8 wins this year, you're going to be happy as a Tennessee fan. I don't think we're going to see any kind of competition from Tennessee pushing up to the top there. So that's the reason I've got them at 4. Hendon Hooker, he's a stud. But Missouri, I've got them at the 5 spot. I've got them there because they had a tremendous recruiting class come in. They've got some guys that are going to ball. Number 6, I've got Florida. The only reason I have Florida at 6 and not 7 is because Vandy's at 7. Vandy is Vandy, and this is a team, man, it's hopeless. It's sad to see. They're talking about restructuring the SEC, and either way you look at it, man, they're going to be just screwed. You can cut that slice of pie any way you want to go, and Vandy's just going to get the short end of the stick as far as the conference goes. So, what do you think about those SEC East rankings, Jake?
Man, I like the SEC East rankings. I'm a fan of what you said about Vandy, because I'm sitting here thinking, whenever it gets to my turn to talk about the SEC East, what am I going to say about Vanderbilt? Vanderbilt is still the worst recruiting class in the SEC. They're not, like, Vanderbilt will only win their cupcake games this year, and if that's if they win that. Like, I think, what are we talking about? We have that big week 0 game against Hawaii, like first SEC game of the year. We get to see Vanderbilt versus Hawaii in Hawaii at 10 something Eastern. Like, nobody's excited about Vanderbilt. I can agree with you. I want to talk a little bit more into it, but my list, I don't want to reveal my list too much unless you want to go back and forth. You want to go back and forth, and like, you do the East, I do the East, you do the West, I do the West?
Yeah, let's go with that. And real quick before we jump on it, I will say Vandy, they've got a couple cupcake games like you just said. You see a Hawaii week 0 game. I think that's definitely a winnable game for them.
7.5 point spread, I believe. 7.5 point spread.
Yeah, 7.5 point spread. We'll be on that for sure. Elon, September 3rd. That's a winnable game. Northern Illinois, September 17th. You could potentially see a win there. But aside from that, man, as far as out of conference goes, the only other game they've got on their schedule is Wake Forest, and that they might lose by 20.
Yeah. I think Vanderbilt's in for a bad season this year, like always. Missouri is a team I'm actually interested in because they actually recruited pretty decently, 6th in the SEC. Missouri still has a way to go. I think they still have a pretty long way to go, but they're interesting at least. Let me go ahead and get in my rankings. Let's go ahead and pop my thing up on the screen.
Yeah, dive into it.
All right, so we got me. All right, number 1, we haven't talked about the Dogs. The Dogs are definitely the number 1 team in the SEC East. There's not a question. There's not a team that's going to compete with the Georgia Bulldogs in the SEC East this year. Georgia has lost, what? We lost 9 defensive starters or something stupid. But what people don't realize is Georgia, if you look at our recruiting rankings are super high every year, and most of the recruits are defense. Like, we have guys like Malachi Starks coming in. We have guys like Jalen Carter sticking around. Keely Ringo is going to be back for another year. He's going to be the number 1 cornerback drafted in next year's NFL draft. There's not a question about it. Our safety group, Tyke Smith and Chris Smith, are rated as maybe the best in college football. So, Georgia, I'm not too worried about us. You don't spoke on Stetson. Stetson's a guy. I knew Stetson was a guy. This is my Stetson moment right here. And the national championship, whenever they had that little thing they called a fumble, Stetson went to go throw the ball. He knocked it out late. Alabama recovered it like our 20, kicked a field goal. And Stetson came out that next drive and drove down Alabama's defense in like 4 plays. Threw that dime to A.D. Mitchell, one of the greatest plays in Georgia football history to me. It was electric, man. Stetson is that guy. Not to mention the running back room. Dijon Edwards. Dijon Edwards is a guy that I feel like a lot of people haven't talked about much because he was kind of the garbage time running back last year. But he's a legit running back. You throw him in with Kenny Mack and Milton and all those guys. I mean, there's so much talent. And we also had that big recruit this year. Name is slipping my thought. Big running back recruit. I'll think about it later. And then you look at the wide receiver group. I mean, A.D. Mitchell, Lad McConkey, not to mention Arik Gilbert, Big O, and then Brock Bowers, the man. Brock Bowers is the best pass catcher in college football. So Georgia is locked in at the 1 spot. I think everybody that watches college football will tell you the same thing. This is where we get a little bit.
There's no doubt.
This is where we get a little bit different right here, Kenny. I actually have Tennessee as number 2. I think Tennessee comes out and wins 9 games. I'm going to say Tennessee wins 9 games this year. I think Tennessee loses to Alabama. I think Tennessee loses to Georgia. You look at the rest of their schedule. I mean, the out of conference games. You have Ball State, Pittsburgh, Akron, UT Martin, and that's it. I mean, Pittsburgh might give them a little bit of problems. You know, Pittsburgh's bringing back. They're bringing in Keaton Slovis. They lost Kenny Pickett, but they got Slovis from I want to say USC. So I mean, their out of conference isn't that tough. They play Bama. They play LSU. So they got a couple games, but the way that they ran their offense last year against Georgia to start the game, I honestly feel if they would have stuck with that game plan, they could have gave us some trouble. I mean, their first drive last year against Georgia, they drove down the field so fast. I was a little bit nervous for about 5 minutes there. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you. Hendon Hooker to me, we're gonna have a quarterback ranking come out soon, and Hendon Hooker for me is ranked fairly highly on that quarterback rating. I think that Hendon Hooker could come out this year, and I mean, he could impress a lot of people. When it comes to his draft stock.
No, I agree with you on that. I think the only thing that turns me off about Tennessee as far as the explosiveness of that offense is that they live by big plays, and in college football in particular, that's just not the SEC specifically. That's not something that a lot of teams can rely on. You look at a program like Mississippi State and what they've done, bringing in that air raid offense. They're throwing the ball 70 times a game. You know, yeah, a team like Tennessee, they're going to give you some scary drives, some big plays, some chunk plays. They're going to demoralize you from that standpoint, but also they're going to go 3-and-out in 30 seconds and give you the ball back, and that defense is going to be gassed, and then they're going to get absolutely ran down their throat by whoever they're playing. When you see the Alabamas, the Georgias, the Kentuckys of the conference, and I think that's where it gets a little hairy for them. But look, I don't hate it. I think it's possible for them to win 9 games. I had them at 8. So, no, I don't think that's a bad take at all.
And I think the conversation we had before the podcast, talking about how close the two through 4 teams are for both of us, because I know we have them like the same, it's just in a little bit different order. I feel like a team like Tennessee, Kentucky, or South Carolina could honestly come out and surprise a lot of people and be second place in the SEC East. I mean, so that brings me to my conversation for Kentucky. Kentucky, my number 3. My main reason I have Kentucky number 3, I mean, they have old Stoops as their head coach. You know, they always manage to somehow quietly win 8 games, 9 games, and be second in the East somehow, and nobody pays any attention to him. Like you were talking about, Will Levis is a legit NFL quarterback. I think Will Levis by himself could carry a team in this conference to, a solid positive record season. And we were talking about Chris Rodriguez, man. Chris Rodriguez might be the best running back in the SEC.
Yeah, dude, he's up there for sure. The only thing that's got me questioning that is his eligibility from that standpoint. I'm not sure, and I don't want to misspeak and speak out of my butt here and talk about his situation, because I'm just not sure. I know he got into a little bit of trouble with the law. He's I think it was a DUI case, I want to say, from back in May or June. So they were talking about him, whether he's going to be in there for the full season, partial, or what his situation is. But I think you bring a guy like that in on day one, and he plays a full season. Yeah, he's up there for an all SEC type season.
Oh yeah, and my one fear about Kentucky this year, Kentucky lost Wan'Dale Robinson this year to the draft, and Wan'Dale Robinson, he put up 1,300 yards. He was like their number 1 guy last year. He was a big playmaker for Kentucky. So if they can replace that guy, I mean, I think Kentucky can definitely make a push for that 2 spot in the SEC East. But I have them at 3 right now. So number 4, we're going with South Carolina. South Carolina is my biggest wild card team. I'm a huge fan. I think me and you both are a huge fan of Beamer.
Oh God, yeah.
Beamer is electric. Like, I love to watch his press conference. He's awesome. I know what he's doing in South Carolina. He's trying to get him on the come up. And we talk about Spencer Rattler, man. The hype comes from somewhere. The guy has talent. I mean, last year was a little bit down at Oklahoma, and Oklahoma's always a high-powered offense. And even 2 years ago, when he put up like 27 touchdowns, 3,000 yards, 11 interceptions, something like that. Like, that's not stellar numbers at a school like Oklahoma. You see these quarterbacks at Oklahoma putting up 50 touchdown seasons like every single year. That's the reason they had Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, and Jalen Hurts all go in the first round. Or I think Jalen might have won a little bit later, but Kyler and Baker were back-to-back first overall picks, right? Like, am I wrong on that?
You're absolutely right. I mean, they're just known for producing these stud quarterbacks, and you see, I mean, Kyler just got paid. Baker's down there in Carolina right now, trying to earn a starting job. Looks like he's probably got a handle on that. So, I mean, whether you can look at it either way you want to, but as far as Oklahoma from a quarterback standpoint, these dudes are producing at a college level, and they've been doing it consistently. So that was my question mark with them: is Spencer Rattler going to be able to be that guy? And I think that's a Beamer. That's going to be a Beamer job, man. If there's anybody that can reel him in and kind of get him dialed in on a team aspect and bringing success to a program instead of from an individual aspect, it doesn't matter what kind of arm you have or what kind of intangibles or tangibles you have, I should say. You bring a guy like that in who is a stud athlete and has got the ability to make throws all over the field. You just got to reel him in. You got to hone him in. You got to give him a set job. And if he can play within the system, then South Carolina is definitely going to be a scary team. I'm just not too sure he's able to do that. But, they might prove me wrong.
Yeah, they'll get their fair share of wins. I'm sure they'll sit around 7, 8 wins. It wouldn't surprise me. They made their first bowl game last year in 3 years. Beamer got them there, so they have talent. They're on their up and coming team, but still they have a long way to go to catch a team like Georgia.
Absolutely.
All right, so that takes me to my next team, Missouri. Missouri's not really a team I have too much to talk about. I know their defense is actually pretty decent. They have a pretty tough defense, but I know their schedule is also pretty tough. So Missouri, they're kind of a hard team to look at. Their recruiting class, as we mentioned whenever you were talking, the recruiting class is pretty decent, and like I said, I just don't have much to say about them. It's not really a team that wows me on paper. We know the SEC East is weak, and to me, these bottom 3 teams aren't going to surprise anybody.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the point of having Missouri there for both of us. We both have Missouri at 5, and our 6 and 7 were unanimous across the board. And the reason I have Missouri at 5 is because of who's at 6 and 7. So that's kind of the only insight I can really give you.
That is true. Now we're gonna go to we're gonna drop to 6 with future first round pick quarterback Anthony Richardson, with all he's proven in his college football career, aka going out against Georgia's defense and just putting up a stinker after all the Florida fans are trying to tell us, oh, this is the guy. Emory Jones can't do nothing. Anthony AR-15 about to save the day. First guy to wear 15 since Tebow, I think. Like, this is this guy right here. Now, I don't want to bite my tongue and he comes out and has a crazy year, but I'm not on the Anthony Richardson train. Billy Napier, they got Louisiana's guy. Again, I don't know how he's gonna fare over here in the Big Boy Conference. We'll see about Florida, what they can do.
Yeah, dude. I mean, you talk about giving the mantle of that number 15 jersey to somebody, and I think they did a good job in giving it to the next Tom Brady.
Yeah, exactly. The guy that replaced Emory Jones after all the Florida fans hated him. Oh, update. I'm gonna look this up real quick. Emory Jones. Whatever happened to him? Didn't he transfer? Was that a thing?
I believe so.
Arizona State. Emory Jones is now at Arizona State. I'm sure he'll get some good numbers there. As you know, and we've discussed before in the past, I'm not a huge Emory Jones hater, so like I've actually I hate to say it because I'm going to get absolutely roasted if the wrong person hears this, but I actually like Emory Jones a little bit. Like he played pretty rough, but I was never a big fan of like most of those Florida teams after Kyle Pitts and Kyle Trask got out of there. I don't think that they've really put together such a great team.
No, and Emory Jones, man, yeah, I'm not a fan.
I know you're not a fan.
We can disagree on that one, but if he does well, I'd love to see him prove me wrong. I think Emory Jones is a good guy, and he's not somebody I'm ever going to root against.
Georgia boy, by the way.
Yeah, he's a Georgia boy. He was put in a bad spot there out there in Gainesville, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, Florida had that season. They had that wonderful amazing season where they finally beat Georgia in the SEC East with Kyle Trask and Kyle Pitts and wide receiver Kadarius Toney, and then they lost all those guys the same year, and they just haven't been back since, which is expected. They lose all their offensive firepower, and to be honest, their recruiting is awful. Florida's recruiting is, I want to say it's Florida's okay. It's not terrible actually. They've heated up. No 5 stars, but they're right behind Missouri. So I mean they're up there, but still a team like Florida at that caliber, you expect them to be a little bit higher in that aspect.
Well, you gotta think a team like that's got to compete with the in-state recruits. I mean, you're splitting recruits with Miami, Florida State.
That
I
is
mean,
true.
shoot, even Central Florida. I think Central Florida just signed a 5-star that was considering going to Florida. I think Florida was his crystal ball, and dude committed to UCF, so that came out of the blue. So you love to see that as a Georgia fan.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be a struggle here to come. You got Cristobal down there at Miami, and it seems like Miami's kind of one of those up and coming teams, jumping up the recruiting ranks every year. So, Florida might be in it for a tough time here soon. That brings me to Vanderbilt. What do I say about Vanderbilt, Kenny? I feel like you discussed everything we can to say about Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's just so bottom tier. We discussed it already. I'm not gonna bully Vanderbilt fans if there are any out there. I'm not gonna bully you guys too much. I'm just gonna leave it at that. Vanderbilt is definitely going to be the bottom team in this conference.
Yeah, to say something positive about Vanderbilt, Nashville's a great city. Period.
That is it. All right, Kenny, you want to go ahead and jump in the SEC West? I'll let you get back on it.
Yeah, let's dive into the West. We're not gonna jump into some pretty heavy, analysis of these teams for a lack of time and not wanting to give you guys a 5-hour podcast. But
Yeah.
as far as the SEC West goes, I mean, you got Bama at 1. Obviously, we're gonna dive into some schedule predictions and talk about what we think as far as the SEC going into the playoff and kind of analyzing what we think as far as postseason and teams that have a shot to win a natty. And I mean, Bama's definitely the favorite across the board. Doesn't matter who you ask. Even as a dog fan, they're bringing back pretty much the entire team. You got the Heisman winner back there playing quarterback. So it's unanimous. Bama's at number 1. My list really starts at 2. I've got A&M at 2. The reason I've got A&M at 2 is for a couple reasons. They've got a wild card at quarterback is what I'm a little bit. I don't want to say questionable on, but a little bit. It's not proven. We're not sure what we're gonna see. You got a guy like Haynes King, who is a crazy athlete. I think he's the number 5 dual threat quarterback in the country, the 2020 class. Earned the starting job in his redshirt freshman year at A&M. Broke his leg in the second game of the year. I want to say it was either the first or the second game, but he definitely started the first game. Broke his leg, is out the year. They had Calzada come in there. He's obviously down at Auburn now. So, I mean, looking at the depth chart, they bring a guy in like Max Johnson from LSU, who had, honestly, you're talking about a guy that threw for 2,800 yards, 27 tuds, and 6 picks at LSU last year. A lot of people had him etched in as the starter day 1 at A&M, but I'm hearing a lot of Haynes King stuff. I'm seeing that Haynes King is projected to be the starter, so I can't really dive into it too much because we don't really know much about them. But I've got A&M right there at that number 2 spot just because they do have an insane recruiting class, especially with all the NIL stuff coming in. Jimbo Fisher's down there. He's obviously one of the best college coaches of recent years, and that's why I've got them at 2. Number 3, I've got Arkansas. I've got Arkansas there because Sam Pittman, stud, UGA legend. Love the guy.
Oh yeah.
KJ Jefferson, he's another guy that I'm not super high on. He is a freak athlete. I'm not sure what his game's going to look like moving forward, carrying on into this season. But he's a guy that had 2,700 yards, over 20 touchdowns, I want to say, and it didn't really throw a lot of picks. He's also a crazy threat on the ground. I mean, you talk about a guy that rushed upwards of 700 yards last year. So he's a dual threat. He's a big dude. He looks like dang George Kittle out there playing quarterback. So you put a guy like that in college football, and they can really give you fits no matter where you're playing. So I've got Arkansas there because of that. At number 4, I've got Ole Miss. Ole Miss, their projected starting quarterbacks, Jackson Dart, I believe. People are really high on him coming into the season. We'll do a breakdown of PFF's quarterback rankings, intra-conference throughout the entire college frame. Coming up on a podcast here in the near future, I'm sure. But Jackson Dart was up there, so I'm optimistic about him. I think he's a good player. They've got a good squad. The coaching, their coaching staff is really good. I really like Lane. He's a top tier guy, I think. So I've got them at 4 because of that. LSU at 5 for me, and the reason I've got them at 5 is kind of back to the SEC East standpoint of who's at 6 and 7. I think LSU's got a solid roster. I believe their starter is going to be Miles Brennan, who is he's an experienced guy. He's a good quarterback. He's a guy that's going to lead you to some wins. I don't know what their win total is. I want to say it's 6.5 or 7.5. I think they're going to float somewhere around there. No, they've got some cupcake games, of course, and then you get into last year. LSU fought with Bama. Almost came out with a win. So I think they're a team where it's any given Saturday they can go out there and make a run at somebody. That's the reason I've got them at 5. I've got Mississippi State at 6. The only reason I've got them at 6 is because I have Auburn at 7. Calzada, starting quarterback at Auburn. He's the only bright spot of that team, in my opinion. I think he's a good player. I think he's a dog. I think he's going to come out there and really give you some good production from a quarterback standpoint, but they just don't really have anything for him to work with. And then Mississippi State at 6, right, just above him. A lot of people are high on that Mississippi State quarterback, and I think, if I'm being honest, it's a hard team to judge from a production standpoint because of the volume. You put a quarterback out there that's throwing the ball 65, 70 times a game in that air raid offense, and he's going to have some crazy numbers. So Will Rogers, I think he's a good player. I really do, but I'm not really sure how to grade him with how that offense plays. And it's just not a sustainable offense, especially in SEC play. So that's the reason I've got them there at 6 and 7, and that wraps up the West for me.
All right, cool. I feel like that we got pretty similar. I'll go ahead and flip to mine. We do have one difference. Our LSU Mississippi State is a little bit different, and I had a similar thought, but I'll go ahead and break it down with Bama. Bama is, to me, they're similar to Georgia. They have a little bit more talent pushing them. Like, they have a little bit more talented teams behind them that are going to kind of push them a little bit. I feel like a team like an A&M and Arkansas, but even those teams just have so many question marks. Alabama, man. They bring back Bryce Young. Bryce Young is the best quarterback in the SEC. There's no doubt about it. They brought in Jahmyr Gibbs from Georgia Tech. Everybody's really high on him. I don't know much about him, even though this is a Georgia podcast. I don't know much about. I know he was like the biggest recruit, so I mean he's out there. I know the wide receiver room's a little bit slack, and I think that was the biggest thing I noticed last year in the national championship. We saw those guys go down, and we didn't see the normal Alabama guys step back up. Slade Bolden's gone. They lost Jamison Williams and Jerry Jeudy. They're all gone. So they lost Billingsley. Billingsley entered the transfer portal. So really the only guy they have is Latu. Latu, the tight end, they're returning. And then, I'm sure they have Alabama fans will come at me. Oh, we got this guy right here. He was a 4-star 2-3 years ago, and he's going to be the next big guy. We'll see it. So,
not to cut you off, but and I know it's kind of a sin around these parts to talk about it, but they did get Jermaine Burton.
They did get Jermaine Burton. That is a fact. I almost forgot about that till you remind me. Jermaine Burton is a good player. I'm excited to see him play with Bryce Young. I'm high on Jermaine Burton, but I'm not going to say he's in the same conversation as a guy like Jamison Williams.
No, not at all.
All right, so that drops you down to number 2, Texas A&M. Texas A&M to me is number 2. They keep on putting in these crazy recruiting classes year after year. We know all the NIL stuff with Jimbo, but to be honest, just get over it. Like, get over it. Jimbo does what he does down there. He's in Texas. Come on, Texas is one of the biggest states when it comes to high school football and recruiting. So he's going to rack in recruits no matter what happens. We talked about the quarterback battle a little bit. We got Haynes King and Max Johnson. I'm just going to give a little preview, and if stuff changes, I'll change my list. But whenever we do the quarterback rankings a little bit later on in a different podcast down the road, I do have Haynes King as my Texas A&M quarterback. And like I said, we'll probably save that stuff for a little bit closer to the season. And like these rankings, I did want to mention this before we get started. These rankings are kind of like a little bit vague because this is before we've really went to like a super deep schedule breakdown and all that fun stuff. Like this is just something we kind of threw together just to get college football rolling a little bit. And I'm sure we might talk about this. I'm sure we'll talk about this plenty of times before the season starts. It's just something we got put together. But
yeah, man, this is strictly face value.
This is just the face value, just so you get our initial thoughts going into the season a little bit beforehand. But yeah, Texas A&M, man, they're gonna win games. Texas A&M's gonna win 9 or 10 games to me. I don't see many teams competing. I know Arkansas. Some people are putting Arkansas at 2. That's Arkansas to me. We talked about it with KJ Jefferson. KJ Jefferson, I'm a big fan. I like KJ Jefferson. I think he is a dynamic college football quarterback. I don't know about his pro rankings per se. I don't know how you put in the pros. We talked about Sam Pittman. He came from a winner with Kirby, so. I think Arkansas could do something similar to they did last year and have pretty surprising success.
Yeah, I agree.
That brings us to Ole Miss. Ole Miss is a very interesting team. To me, Ole Miss is another one of those wild card teams because they lost their quarterback. They did lose Matt Corral to the draft. Matt Corral was an absolute stud at Ole Miss, but I feel like Jackson Dart, former USC quarterback, could come in and be an absolute stud with Lane Kiffin. Like Jackson Dart is a guy that I've seen some pretty high hopes for. So He's a guy that I've enjoyed watching, so I'm kind of rooting for him. They also got Zach Evans from TCU. I know he was a big guy whenever it came to coming to Georgia when he was coming out as a 5-star in high school, but he had that problems where he got like kicked off his football team and stuff. But he has talent. I think Ole Miss is going to be a solid team. I don't see them doing like a crazy amount of damage, but they wouldn't surprise me if they made a push to be in front of Arkansas.
No, and I agree. The Jackson Dart thing is a little bit of a wild card from a standpoint if he does have some limited game time. But you're talking about a guy with a 132 passer rating. I mean, this dude is shown that he's a baller. He is a dog. He knows ball. All the things you want to throw in there and talk about him. So I think it's hard to replace a guy like Matt Corral. So Jackson Dart, he's probably the closest thing you can get to it from that standpoint. And Lane Kiffin, he's a stud. He's gonna get the boys ready to go out there and play on Saturdays.
Yeah, Lane is definitely a monster. Again, we're talking about guys that come under Saban. I know a lot of them haven't had like crazy, like haven't had like haven't beat him in the championships until Kirby and all that stuff. So but he's one of those guys, man. Lane Kiffin's a great coach. So that brings me to Mississippi State. So Mississippi State, I have them ranked above LSU. I know you had LSU ranked at 5, but I'm kind of in a similar situation. I just feel like Mike Leach's air raid offense is just gonna make them outplay a team like LSU and Auburn. I just feel like them having Will Rogers. They brought back Jaden Wally, who was their number one wide receiver last year. I mean, I just don't see them being much different. They played some really good football last year.
Yeah, no, for sure. That offense it's so crazy because it's something that you can't really prepare for. I mean, you talk about scout team, which is huge in college football, where you're trying to mimic players and mimic game plans and mimic game styles, and that's such a hard one to prepare for and practice. I mean, you got a guy like Will Rogers who is a very talented football player, a very talented quarterback, and then you just put him on that offense where they sling the ball all over the place. They don't run the ball hardly at all, and when they do, it's just to set up the play action to throw it 60 yards down the field. So they're another team where they can really kind of step in there and catch you off guard and rack up 42 on you in a hurry and kind of leave you in the dust. So if you're not careful with Mississippi State, that's a good point. They'll definitely dust you and run off on you real quick.
Yeah, that is a major fact. So that brings me to LSU. Now we're at LSU. We got the guy Brian Kelly with his fake Southern accent doing dancing out there with recruits, getting guys to change their recruitment after he done dance with them on a little stage with the camera going around in circles. He made some pretty funny memes in the offseason.
And family.
And family, Brian Kelly, coming from Notre Dame. So I like Brian Kelly, honestly. He was the stuff he was doing was kind of a clown, but I do think he's a good coach.
Oh, yeah.
I just don't see LSU doing too much. LSU did have a decent recruiting class this year. LSU finished 4th in the SEC in recruiting, right behind Georgia. I mean, I'm not going to say right behind Georgia because it wasn't really close. Texas A&M, Alabama, and Georgia were way up there in the top 3. But still, I mean, they were the first team out of those top 3. So they're up there, but I don't see too much going on with that team this year. Now we're going to talk about Auburn. Auburn is the most lost team in the SEC. One of the most lost. I mean, I'm not going to put it like them with Vanderbilt, but out of the big name teams that you expect to be good, Auburn is just so lost right now. Auburn is a mess, and I really don't have much to say about them because they're just so unknown. Like, what is going on there? Is their quarterback still Finley? Is that the situation they're running into?
They got Calzada.
Calzada, that's right. They did get Calzada from A&M. I would love to see that. I need to keep track of that for the quarterback rankings because I did not have him as my quarterback in SEC.
Yeah, they're tough because they really only have, any way you look at it, they've got 2 bright spots on the team, and it's your quarterback and your running back. You got Calzada and Tank Bigsby. And, Tank is a stud. He's a guy that's going to come out there and really give you some positive gameplay. And, I mean, he's a beast. He's a guy you've got a game plan against, and he's a game changer for sure. And I think could be a stud in the league as well moving forward. Calzada's a little bit of a wild card. He had a good year at A&M. It was a weird situation with him coming in after Haynes earned the job and then broke his leg. So aside from those 2 guys, I'm with you, dog. I mean, I really don't know where you're optimistic. As far as this depth chart goes, it does not look good.
All I know is you never let Zach Calzada go to the medical tent and get whatever type of cortisone shot or whatever the hell they gave him in that medical tent against Alabama because he came out after that and was slinging the football.
That Aaron Rodgers treatment, the dude comes out there and plays like Dan Marino.
It was insane. It was insane. Well, that was a pretty fun segment, Kenny. I really enjoyed that. And like we said, we're gonna dive a lot deeper into college football as we get closer to the season. This is just something, a little prep, get a little ready for it. We're just a couple weeks away. What, about 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks away till we get to see Vanderbilt play Hawaii at 10:30.
Dude, it's getting close, and we're in a point right now to where the sports world has kind of been revolving around this MLB trade deadline. So we've been hitting on that so much through these first two podcasts that you guys are seeing and hearing. So we're kind of getting to a point now to where things have cooled off from that standpoint. So we're going to talk ball, we're going to talk baseball, we're going to talk football, and I'm excited, really, really excited to dive into college ball this year and really get some good breakdowns of what we can expect, specifically with the dogs, and I'm sure we'll do a full roster breakdown here coming up pretty soon, and really kind of give you guys our 2 cents of what we think you can expect and what to see out there on Saturdays as far as that Georgia club goes.
And we'll also try to limit the hour and 30-minute YouTube stream and podcast. That's probably that might be a start. We just had so much stuff on the schedule to talk about, and after getting done with the deadline, I looked at the timer and I was like, "Man, we've already been talking for 50 minutes, and we still have to go over the whole SEC." So, we'll try to keep those down a little bit for you guys. I know that's kind of a long thing to make it through, and if you made it this far, thank you so much. We always appreciate all the support, and it was a fun podcast, man. I enjoyed it.
Absolutely, man. I want to say thank you to everybody that tuned in to our first episode. It was very well received.
Oh yeah.
It really surprised me. We got some really, really good feedback, and I'm super optimistic about this show moving forward and the content that we're actively working on getting to you guys. I'm super excited for. We really enjoy doing it. Like I said in the first episode, this is sports, man. We eat, sleep, and breathe it, and this is something that whether we're sitting on here with the record button going, preaching to you guys, telling you about all our takes and what we think. This is something that we're going to talk about anyway, so we're really, really excited and looking forward to doing this, for many episodes to come.
All right, Kenny. You think you're ready to get this thing over with and just take a double check on this Phillies Braves slaughter?
Man, let's take a look at this thing, and we appreciate y'all for listening.
Oh yeah, thank you so much, guys. See ya.